really like the two or three most important things to me as I've continued to hire more employees and grow out the business is one, making sure I'm hiring the right types of people. All right. So it's not just about hiring the smartest people. It's about hiring people that you work well with and also believe in what your company is doing, right? We're looking for people we're not necessarily looking for A+ work, right? A- work is okay if you're putting in 110% effort, right?
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about remote culture, specifically how do you create an exceptional remote culture. Our special guest today is the founder of Aditude, that's with an AD, and he is Jared Siegal. Jared and I talk about what does it take to create an exceptional remote culture in terms of leadership, in terms of accountability, in terms of emotional intelligence. You may feel like those aren't connected, but they actually are very connected. And we, connect the dots for you around all those things so that you can be the leader that your team deserves. And today we're talking about exceptional remote culture because it's the reality of our world. We're going to be remote. There are going to be some elements and some talented people who will be remote, and you may not have a completely remote culture, but people want flexibility. It's one of the number one values across new or younger employees. So we unpack that today for you. My name is Gene Hammett. I am a coach, an executive coach specifically, and we do leadership development, turning managers into leaders. We help you grow your company, but we also help you grow and expand your leadership capacity. One of the tools we use is called the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. It is a really powerful way to look at leadership across your organization to determine where you are, what's missing, and where you should be focused as you continue to grow. And you'll be surprised by what comes out of that. It's absolutely free. We usually charge for this, but if you're listening to the podcast, we want to make you know that we trust you and we really appreciate you. And so it's absolutely free for you. Just mention it on genehammett.com, schedule your call to talk about the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. The big thing you get out of that is you get to codify your leadership. You get to measure it, if you will, so that you understand where you are and where you're going. And that's my promise to you. It's customized and personalized just to you. Go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Jared. Jared, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
We're great. Excited about having a conversation with you about remote culture and what that means in today's world. I think a lot of us are used to remote, but I would imagine you guys are probably started out that way. We'll get into the story in just a minute. Tell us about your company, Aditude.
Sure. So we are an ad operations technology company, mostly made up of developers. We basically build out custom technology to help websites, to help publishers serve ads, right, on their websites and monetize those pieces of content.
So where do you think marketing is going? I think a lot of things are changing even faster than they were 2 years ago, but with AI being the kind of the word of the year, where do you think your industry is going?
I think it's still very much TBD to some extent. I know it's a little bit of a cop out of an answer, but things are radically changing every day, every week. ChatGPT and like AI is part of it. Also, all of the impending legal changes as it relates to the EU and also the United States coming out in early 2024. And then also Google Chrome basically saying, hey, we're going to get rid of cookies at some point next year. All three of these are very fundamentally major changes to the online advertising industry. And no one really understands, including like the biggest names in the space as to what the impact is. But what I can tell you is we're doing our best to go back to like what we are confident, what we are strong at, right? In order to prepare for that. So that means building out custom tech as it relates to identifying users without using first-party data and things like that, without tracking them. How do we infer who these users are? How do we make smarter decisions to help with advertising while still abiding by all of the upcoming, changes to the laws?
Well, that was more changes than I was aware of. So I'm really excited to have you on the conversation today about your team and leadership, because we could talk about the aspects of what you do, the services you guys provide, the technology and the data. I'm sure that would be fun. But I'm really most interested in, what does it take to create a team that grows at the pace that you guys have been growing? You were 450 on the Inc. list this in 2023. What do you think it takes to grow the team that you have?
Yeah, a handful of things. So first of all, you kind of hinted at this, we are fully remote. We've always been fully remote. One of the main reasons I started the company is because I wanted to be able to work remote wherever I want to, spend my time. And really, like, the two or three most important things to me as I've continued to hire more employees and grow out the business is, one, making sure I'm hiring the right types of people. All right. So it's not just about hiring the smartest people. It's about hiring people that you work well with and also believe in what your company is doing, right? We're looking for people we're not necessarily looking for A+ work, right? A- work is okay if you're putting in 110% effort, right? If you're dedicated to the company. And so as we've continued to scale up the team, it's been pretty interesting. Say like half of the people at Attitude, we've actually worked together at previous companies in the past. We know we work well together, and we know, these employees are trustworthy and are going to get the job done. So that's a decent part of it. The other big part of it is training/responsibilities, right? And so even at the most junior level, the people who are coming into Attitude, fresh out of college, have never coded before, have never had a full-time job, right? We are very quickly ramping them up, their skill set, training them on every aspect of our business, and putting them in charge of products, right? And when people feel empowered, feel responsible, and feel like the monetary impact of the work that they're doing, they're way more likely to work even harder, right? And so we don't have this structure of like, okay, there's a manager and then, or like a senior manager and then a manager and then an analyst and things like that, right? Even on the development side, it's the same thing, right? It's a very flat structure. We have certain people who obviously have way more experience than others, and they may take on more responsibility, but everyone is responsible in the company. Everyone owns big aspects of the business, right? We have one developer who, fresh out of college, is managing an entire CMS platform, right? 6 months ago, he had no idea how to code. So this is all about giving them the right responsibilities and training to make them feel good about themselves, right? That way you don't have to, as a manager, as a CEO or an executive in a company, constantly keep an eye out, right? If people feel their own responsibility and their own pride over their work, they're gonna do as good of a job as they would if you were hounding them, right?
I want to zero in on this remote culture, because it's one thing to get work done, but to do it remotely. So one of the things that our company researched about you guys is, what does it take to foster an exceptional remote work culture? What do you think that is in terms of leadership?
Okay, a few things. So one is just the constant communication, right? So yes, we all have Slack like every other company, or Teams or whatever you may use, but we're really big proponents of just hopping on a Google Hangout, right, and chatting through things. You can come up with new ideas or solve an issue within 5 minutes that over a video chat that may have taken 3 hours over text messages or whatever it may be. Our development team does daily stand-ups. Our ad ops team does a few stand-ups a week. And with our biggest clients, we actually meet with all of them weekly as well over video chats. So the first thing is just like constantly having that face-to-face, quote unquote face-to-face communication with everyone on the team. The second thing is, and we're actually doing it right after this, is our weekly team meeting, right? Where we share a lot of information, forget about like what's going on in the day-to-day, right? Like, hey, we need this task to be done or whatever. It's like everyone understands where the company stands financially, where we are in terms of hiring, what new products are coming out, where things are in the development cycle, right? Everyone is very much, kept in the know of what's going on in the business. I've been at previous companies in the past where even as a very senior employee, I had no idea what was actually going on behind closed doors. Not the case with Attitude. And the final thing, which I think is really unique about us and a huge selling point when we're pitching to new clients, is that everyone is trained in everything. So our business employees, what I call like the business side, aka ad operations, these are people who have up to like 10 years of experience serving ads on the internet, right? but they've never coded before. They've never done development. Yet these guys are the ones that are going into our GitHub and pushing more code releases, more PRs than anyone else in the company, because we've taught them how to write TypeScript and CSS and JavaScript, right? And vice versa. Our developers are going into our ad server and pulling reports and understanding the impact of their releases and telling us, the business side, right, what the impact of their work is, right? If you understand every aspect of the business, you're going to make smarter decisions. I think it's also, again, especially for the development side of Aditude, something that's missing a lot in bigger companies is like you work on a project and you don't actually know what the impact is, both from like a client perspective, but also from a monetary perspective, right? But that's not the case with Aditude. These developers have full access to all the revenue reporting, and they know, hey, I made this release. It just made us X number of dollars. This is awesome. This is my worth. Let me keep going down that path, right? And so we train every employee in every aspect of our business from day one, right? Even our salespeople know what we're doing from a development perspective and can talk circles around most developers. I think that shows to our employees that we're super dedicated towards their well-being, right, and their advancement in their career, but also just makes their job a lot easier.
Now, Jared just said everyone's kept in the know. He mentioned everyone knows where we are financially, which is really cool. You want to have a level of transparency inside your business where people feel like they're insiders, because those that don't feel like you share the things with them that they need to do their work and to understand the business feel like outsiders. And those that are insiders will put their heart and soul into the work. Those that are outsiders will do the bare minimum. You kind of get the point. My point behind all of this is there's a transparency line, and depending on where you feel comfortable or not, I'm going to ask you to go toward remarkable. Go to a place where people will go, wow, that's really remarkable that you guys are that open and transparent with your people and you trust them that much. That is what creates the kind of culture that we've been talking about, that exceptional remote culture. Back to Jared. Jared, this isn't very common. I talked to a lot of people about what makes them successful and what makes their culture work, because I know we're talking about, fostering an exceptional remote culture, but training everyone on being a coder and vice versa. Where did you learn this from?
So I don't do a lot of the training. Some of it I do. Some of it we obviously our CTO or like our CFO will get involved in. I think what led me down this path, and even why I was able to start a development company as a non-developer, right, is my very first job experience, where I was working at this company called answers.com. And in my spare time, because I was curious, I was on the ad op side, I would just start picking up bugs, right, from the development team. Like, hey, that's interesting. I want to learn how to fix this, right? And I basically taught myself how to code. I wouldn't say that I'm great now, but I'm dangerous enough to be able to go head to head with a lot of people. But that was like the aha moment for me in my career, right? When I actually understood how the things that I was working on operated, right, and got accomplished on the web. It made my job on the ad op side of things way simpler. So as I started hiring my first employee to my 20th employee, right, it was super important to me that everyone got the same experience that I got, and two, represents the brand properly, right? And the only way in my eyes for us to do that is to ensure that everyone knows what they're talking about, right? And that's how we separate ourselves from everyone else in the space. We all know every aspect of the business. We're all, and I'm not talking about it like from a very high level, like at a very, very granular level. We all know what's going on, and it has big impacts on output, on happiness, on performance, and also really provides a lot of relief for such a small company with so much business, where if one person or two people are out for a week, right, it's not a big issue. We have 18 other people that can fill in and know every aspect of what's going on there, right?
Jared, we use a tool inside of our work and working with clients to measure leadership. We call it the leadership effectiveness evaluation. And there's two areas that when there's remote culture is present, that they really have to pay attention to with intention. The first one is accountability. So how does your company address having an exceptional, remote culture with accountability?
Yeah, that's very challenging as you're not standing there looking over, someone's shoulder. We move very quickly. We do upwards of 5 deployments a day. Very different again than most companies in our space that may only do 1 or 2 every 2 weeks. And the reason we do that is because we set deadlines on every task. So every development related task, whether it's super complicated and a really large task, or hey, I just need to change this one number in this one line, every single one of them gets a ticket. Every single one of them gets a due date and an assigned owner. And then every day we check, where the status of every single ticket is. For a company as small as us that's moving as fast as us, this has been the easiest way to track that. But that's also why we do a lot of team meetings, right? And it's during those team meetings where an executive may come up like, hey, whatever happened with this? Oh yeah, that was like a buried ticket. I forgot about that. Or someone more junior may ask a question like, hey, I want to work on this, but I don't understand this one part of it. Can you explain that, right? Can we learn about that a little bit? And so, I think I mentioned this earlier, but we do 4 days a week. They do development stand-ups. And then on Friday, they review all of the outstanding tickets to prioritize for next week. We kind of do something pretty similar on the ad operations side. Not quite as detailed because a lot of those tasks are very time sensitive. So they come in, they get done, and we move on. But bigger projects get organized in the same fashion. And that way, one, we make sure nothing gets left behind. And two, it's very clear who is responsible for each task and how quickly they're getting it done, right? For us, it's a matter of getting as much done correctly as quickly as possible, right? The one thing that we are very weary of is you don't want tons of really bad work to get done and get out there, because then it kind of defeats the purpose, right? But having an organized ticket system certainly helps, but there's always room for improvement on that in a remote environment.
Now, Jared's been talking about accountability. One thing he didn't mention, and it's been very useful for our clients, been very useful for as we run our company, is a scorecard. Giving each person 1, 2, 3, maybe even more metrics to track week to week so that you know where things are going, where they're improving, that we are actually improving, because otherwise you look back at it and you're not sure. I like weekly because it holds people accountable to the week, and we can adjust throughout the month. If we look back at it just at the end of the month, much like our financials, we don't get a chance to adjust to them. We have to just kind of keep going. So create some scorecards that improve your ability to create people or hold people accountable, and that will help you guys. Back to Jared. Second area that struggles with a lot of remote cultures is EQ, the emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Maybe it's because the relationships are not as easy when we're not having, the personal conversations that we have at water coolers and for the business day. How do you guys make sure that the emotional intelligence of the culture stays in alignment with the way you guys are performing and the way you guys are connecting together?
Yeah. So that I'm proud of how we handle, as someone who I think is pretty empathetic, but also I've experienced the opposite end of what you're talking about here with bad management is, we approach it in 2 ways. First off, the CEO, so me and the CTO, have weekly one-on-ones with everyone in the company, which is a very aggressive thing considering how small we are and how busy we are. But these one-on-ones are spent 5 minutes talking about work and the remaining time talking about whatever that person wants to talk about, right? And so we come, armed with some comments, some feedback ourselves, but a lot of the time my question is so what do you want to talk about, right? And I encourage everyone to show up to those one-on-ones with a list of topics that are important to them, right? And the majority of the time, it has nothing to do with the actual work that they're working on, but it's those interpersonal things that you're talking about, right? And so I try very hard to understand and appreciate the personal lives, right, of our employees and become friends with them outside of being their boss, right? And so I think that has worked quite well. We've seen some very big turnarounds in terms of employee success stories and output by us just taking a step back and hearing them, right? And just hearing what they want to talk about. The second thing, which is maybe a little bit crazier, but we are remote, but we get together a lot. Okay. And so we spend a lot of money to do things where we're going actually in 2 days, the entire company is flying to Disney World. We're spending 5 days together, at the same hotel, the same parks, all the same activities, dinners, lunches, everything together, because what a better way to bond and really get past any personal grudges you may have than, going down a roller coaster at 80 miles an hour next to that person. So we do a lot of those. I'm a big golfer. We do, we'll have people fly out or drive out. We'll play some rounds of golf. When we go sponsor events, which we sponsor a lot of marketing events, each event we fly different people to. I probably come to like 75% of them, but the other 2 or 3 spots that we'll have, it'll always be someone new. So those different people get to experience these events, get to have one-on-one time with me, one-on-one time with each other, things like that. So even though we're all remote, and until a year and a half ago with COVID and everything, we had never even met each other in most cases. In the last year and a half, we've probably all gotten together in various ways 5 or 6 times as a company, and we have plans to just continue to do that. Every time we do one of those events, the immediate week after, our performance, our output, and employee happiness goes way up.
I love the detail that you just talked about there, because a lot of people think that work is work and we're not going to be friends with people we work with. I'm not saying you're going to be like the closest of friends, but you need to understand people at a personal level. And that's what you're describing. And the way you guys are investing really is a beautiful story of the value of culture, even in a remote working environment. So Jared, thank you for being here. I know I've run out of time. I wish we could keep going, but I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very nice meeting you and chatting with you.
Wow, what a great conversation to talk about the exceptional remote culture, what it really means to lead that, what it really means to hold people accountable, and why you want to make sure that you're doing this consistently and using the tools that are available to you. We want to also focus on the relationships inside of this. Emotional intelligence, the EQ, if you will, of leadership is required. You have to be very intentional about it with a remote culture. So that's our time together today. Hopefully you are taking notes. You're ready to apply the things that you've learned today, because that's the key. And if there's anything we can help you with, make sure you reach out to us. My name is Gene Hammett. Happy to help you. And as always, lead with courage.